First of all, let's understand what side effects are. And we can best see this in the auth service. Side effects are basically parts in your code where you run some logic that, of course, is important for your application, otherwise you wouldn't do it, but that's not so important for the immediate update of the current state. So for example here, this HTTP request. Of course the result of that matters. It decides whether we did successfully create a new user or not. But for this process where we start the sign-up process, this is not important. So we could basically split this up into two actions. Start sign-up and sign-up success, for example. Or even three actions. Start sign-up success, and sign-up error. So the start sign-up action would then be an action where the response here doesn't matter, and this is just a side effect for us. The sign-up success action also is one where the response matters, but where we don't want to deal with sending this. So the request is kind of in between the different actions. Each action only cares about a part of that. This request, while it's on its way, is not really something our state cares about or our store cares about. We don't want to save that. It's just some side effect code we run. The same for local storage. This actually does not happen asynchronously. Accessing local storage happens synchronously, so it's done instantly, and we could therefore do it in the reducer. Only async code is forbidden there and will break it. Adding this line to a reducer wouldn't break the reducer, but it would be considered a bad practice. Because again, accessing the local storage and writing something to it or getting something from there is really just a side effect of the application. Of course, the result of that, especially when we're getting data, matters to us, but the process itself is not that interesting to us. So things like that are side effects. And whilst we could manage some of them, like local storage in the reducer, others, like async code and HTTP requests, can't even be managed there. And either of the two things would be a bad practice, even if we could technically handle HTTP requests in there. That's why there is a separate package, also provided and maintained by the NGRX team, that helps us with dealing such side effects while still staying in this NGRX world. And this package now has to be installed, of course. We do that with the npm install -- save, and the name is @ngrx/effects. NGRX effects is a package that gives us tools for elegantly working with side effects between actions which we dispatch and receives, so that we can keep our reducers clean and still have a good place for managing these side effects. Now let's restart ngserve after installing this. It is important to me here to point out that, of course, you could also go for an approach where you still have a service for sending the HTTP request and for working with local storage, and then you have your reducer and NGRX for managing your current state. So basically the setup we already have here. You could also keep that, and as so much else with NGRX, it comes down to your personal preference and likings. But here, I think it is good, especially for learning about NGRX, if we move as much as possible into the NGRX world, and therefore if we use NGRX effects for managing our HTTP requests and local storage access. So let's start adding effects, and let's start by adding a login effect. And of course, we'll thereafter also add sign up and so on. For this, since it's auth related, in the auth store folder, let's add a new file, auth.effects.ts. And in auth effects, we need to export a normal class. You organize your effects in classes. The name should be auth effects, matching the file name. And inside of auth effects, we now need to inject something, first of all. And that something is coming from the NGRX effects package. So from @NGRX effects, we have to import something, and that something is actions. Now we imported action from @NGRX store before for creating our actions. Actions here is something different. It's a different kind of object. It allows us to inject actions, and the convention here is to write this with a $sign at the end, but this is totally up to you. This entire name is up to you. And actions is of type actions. Now what is actions? Actions is one big observable that will give you access to all dispatched actions so that you can react to them. You just react differently than in the reducer, because in the reducer, you of course also get access to all dispatched actions as you learned. Here, in the effect class, in the auth effects class, the idea now is that you don't change any state, but that you can execute any other code that should happen when such an action is dispatched. And that you then can simply dispatch a new action once that code, which also may be asynchronous, is done. So this is just a stream of dispatched actions, so to say. And again, using that $sign, I haven't done it before in this application. I got other observables injected where I don't add this. Some like to add a $sign after every observable so that it's clear that this is an observable. In a lot of the official docs, you will see that $sign especially for the actions. Hence, I leave it here, but it is up to you if you add it or not. It's not required. So the actions are injected here. With that injected, we can register our first effect. So our first action handler, so to say. You add such an effect as a normal property in your auth effects class. And I will name this auth login. The name is totally up to you though. You can choose any name here. It should kind of describe which kind of effect you're handling though. Now in here, in auth login, I now assign a value and there I use my actions. So I'm referring to the injected actions property here. Whoops, like this. Now, actions, as I mentioned, is just an observable, and therefore we can call pipe or subscribe. Now, don't call subscribe here. NGRX effects will subscribe for you. Just call pipe instead. And what you need to pipe here is now a special RxJS operator, which is not part of RxJS, but which is provided by @NGRXEffects. It's the auth type operator. Auth type simply allows you to define a filter for which types of effects you want to continue in this observable pipe you're creating, in this observable stream here. Because you can have multiple effects by adding multiple properties to your class here, and you can simply define different types of effects that you want to handle in each chain. So here, for example, we could handle the login effect, or to be precise, the login action, since we're basically reacting to all dispatched actions here. And this is a filter to allow us to define for which exact actions we want to continue in this chain. And now I need more actions. Thus far, we only had log in and log out. But now, since we actually want to send the HTTP request here from inside our auth effect, we need a new identifier, which could be login start. And the value here could be auth login start. Of course, you could name this login success, but I don't want to rename it everywhere where I used it. Hence, I will keep that named login. Login start, however, is basically the point where we want to start sending our request. So here in auth effects, we now import everything as auth actions from this auth actions file. And here in auth type, we can then refer to auth actions login start here. And what this says is only continue in this observable chain if the action that we're reacting to here is of type login start. All other actions will not trigger this effect here. Only login start will. And you could add multiple actions here, by the way, if you want to run the same code for different actions.